Yeah, so happy to have Ben Kramer, otherwise known as Old Sea Brigade. Man, how have things been?
Things have been good. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. We just chatted a little bit. It's a little later over in Sweden, but man, so maybe I'm curious, and this might be the worst question to lead off with, but I looked around and I don't know, I couldn't find it. Where does Old Sea Brigade come from? Where did you come up with that?
So I played in a million bands like when I was in middle school and high school, and I think it was like my junior year of high school. A couple of friends and I we wrote some songs, and we never really got around to starting a band. But one of my friends had, I think my friend Emma came up with the name Old Sea Brigade, and I was like, that's a cool name.
All right.
And then years later, I didn't want to go by my real name when I started
Yeah,
like my solo project, so I texted
sure.
Emma and I was like, "Hey, could I use that?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course."
Right.
So I wish I had a better story, but I just thought it sounded cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It does sound cool. I'm always curious on where artists kind of grab their names from. So,
Yeah.
um, let's talk about growing up. So, I grew up on music. My parents played 90s country everywhere we went. My grandmother was into like Elvis and polka music.
Okay.
What kind of music was being played around your house? What did you kind of grow up on?
Um, I'd say a lot of like Bruce Springsteen,
Mm.
and I mean just like kind of like the classics, Tom Petty, and
Yeah.
I mean my mom was a ballet dancer, so like I'm sure like I inherited something from that musically.
Yeah.
Um, but I got a lot of like my a lot of it, and early influences were from my dad. And then when I joined bands, I was always like the youngest in the band, and then like the guitar player would like, "Hey, you got to check out this guy Tom Waits," and I was like, "Who is this?" Like
Right.
that would blow my mind. And then
Yeah.
one thing would lead to another.
So I think we're around the same age. I'm 34. You're around
Yeah,
that age? Yeah,
I just
sweet.
turned 34.
Amazing. Great,
Yeah,
great age.
I
So
love
so
being in my 30s. It's
yeah,
great.
I'm with you. So breaking. So I guess as kids, like I broke out and found my own music through a lot of soundtracks, right? Through like I remember like I found the anthem by Good Charlotte through one of the Madden games, and
Yeah.
like I found Rage Against the Machine through like Tony Hawk. Um, or my friend would always have MTV Jams on in his house. So when you and your friends kind of like broke out and found your own music, what were you listening to? Was it still that same stuff, or were you finding kind of your own mix?
Yeah, so I was really into like the whole skateboard culture growing up, but I was a terrible skateboarder. But we'd always play like Tony Hawk, and I
Right.
think those soundtracks they were pretty iconic, and that's how me and all my peers we discovered Rage Against the Machine and like flogging Molly, and I mean
Yeah.
the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
But yeah, then. I remember one soundtrack, it was for the movie Vanilla Sky, and that's where I discovered like the Chemical Brothers and Red House Painters, which
Okay.
then like turned me on to like Sun Kill Moon and all of like Mark Kozlik's stuff.
Yeah. It's
Um,
funny. It's funny how over the years, like the way people kind of find music has like changed. Like I think obviously it still kind of exists in soundtracks and syncs, but it's obviously like feels social media drives so much of that. It feels like nowadays,
yeah,
um, whether it be
and
good.
yeah, and just like attention spans. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I was just like, even I can't even find like a movie to watch on Netflix. Then I just go on YouTube, and then I'm not even watching videos on YouTube. I go to like I get sucked into the shorts or whatever, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, what have I just done with the last
Yeah.
2 hours? And I think there's probably some of that obviously reflects too with like music discovery in 2025. Um, so
Uh, so speaking of like soundtracks or syncs, so your music has been like kind of tapped for that for a couple shows, and I'm just interested, like, what's that process like, and how does it kind of feel like when you get to see, um, your song in a show and it's kind of brought to life in a different way?
yeah, I remember the first sync I ever got was for the TV show Nashville, and that was when I was living in Nashville, and I was like super excited about it, of course. But then I remember watching the episode, and the song came on at the very end, but you couldn't hear it at all. So it's such a big letdown. It's like you can't control those things. And I've
Right.
been there was a time then like I had a couple syncs like one after another, and I was like, this is great. Like this is pretty easy. Just keep them
Yeah.
coming. Then I didn't have a sync for like 5 years. But for me, every song that gets placed on a TV show, it's like the last song I thought would get placed. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you went with that one. I thought you would want, this
Right.
other
Right.
one that, but so you never know. You never know what's gonna work and not work. But it's always, like, that TV show Shrinking just had a song of mine, and it was like cool watching Harrison Ford like in the scene, and I was like, I never would have imagined this in a million years when I was writing the song.
Right.
Uh, so it,
What
it
is
it it's like hearing your song on the radio or something. It makes you feel like a little kid. You just get
what is
excited.
what does that process look like? They just kind of approach you and they're, hey, we want to use some of your music in our
Yeah,
show kind of deal?
I just get an email from like the label or my
Right.
manager, and they're just like, "This TV show wants to use your song." I was like, "Great,
Cool. Yeah,
can we
right.
have more of these, please?"
Right. Yeah, I mean it's such an easy like marketing, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and then there's people too that like, especially like in Nashville, I was there for 11 years, and there's people that their whole career is writing songs for sync, and they're really good at it. And I've tried it. It feels a bit too much like a homework assignment for me.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm always open to like the challenge every now and then. But I haven't done so much of it anymore. But I mean, there's people that that's what they do every day.
That's interesting. I guess I didn't realize that people would just write songs specifically for that, but that makes sense
Yeah,
now that you
you'll get
say
like
it. But
you get sent like a brief, and they're like, "Oh, this is the scene about, someone walking their dog, on a sunny day, and we need,
yeah,
a song like, that's not
interesting.
depressing."
Right. Interesting. Yeah, that's new for me. That's
Yeah.
super interesting. So I think it's safe to say kind of like over the years your sound has gone from like super like stripped back acoustic, when you first started and now you're into like this indie rock folk sound. Is that kind of like you always wanted that evolution to look like that, or is it just kind of naturally happened for you and are you kind of comfy in that space now?
Yeah, I think I just jump around so much. I mean, I listen to so many different types of music, and I grew up in playing in like punk bands and like hardcore bands, and but I've always loved just, singer-songwriter music. And I remember when I put out my first EP, it was like 2015, 2016, and I think um I sort of stumbled on this indie folk world that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
That had like sort of ethereal um soundscapes and all of that. And so then I put out that EP that was pretty acoustic, and was very fortunate and got on all these like coffee house playlists on Spotify, and that kind of launched my career as Old Sea Brigade. And then yeah, I just kept I don't know, I think like then the following EPs like were sort of, relatively acoustic, and then I think it was for my like second record I tried to branch out, and it wasn't really intentional. It was just what I was writing at the time, and
Yeah.
what I found exciting.
Yeah.
And now too, like I think just with everything going on in the world, I don't know what I want to do next, but it's leaning more towards like a heavier thing. And I don't know if that's Old Sea Brigade or if it's a new project, but
Yeah.
I'm now trying to just allow myself like the space and time to like let the creative process do its thing.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, I think that's interesting too because it feels like I mean the indie like folk rock space feels like it's having like a moment again, and like the
mhm.
especially on like the social media side of things, there's so many like different artists kind of in that space. So to try to like lean into something different, I think yeah, I mean I think it makes sense and it's a good way to just kind of step out of that for a minute.
Yeah, it has to
Uh,
be. For me, I have to be excited about it. Like
yeah,
I start so many ideas that I like. You know, I'll write a verse and be like, all right, this is okay. Then I'll put it away for a month or 2 months, or I mean sometimes a year, and then I'll like
yeah,
be on a flight or something and go through my voice memos on my phone, uh, just to pass the time, and I'll
right,
stumble on like some random verse I wrote like, you know. 6 months ago that I forgot
Right.
about, and like,
That's
oh, this is cool. Maybe I could use this for this idea, and that's how like
yeah.
my first song, "Love Brought Weight." It was actually two songs, and this was I wrote that before I even knew I was gonna like start a solo career. I was playing guitar, like lead guitar in a rock band in New York,
Right.
and like not writing songs, just playing loud guitar solos, which was
Yeah.
fun too.
Right.
But like but for Love Brought Weight, it was I the chorus was one song, the verse was another song, and it just happened to one day I had the idea to just put them together. Like, oh,
Yeah. Worked out
there we
pretty
go,
well.
solved the puzzle.
Right. Yeah. Worked out really, really well for you.
But it's always like that. I mean, it's for me, songwriting is always a puzzle.
Yeah.
But that it keeps it fun,
Yeah.
And the only way to get better, I think, is just to keep showing up. I used to wait until like I felt creative, but now, like as I get older and have more responsibilities, like I'll get to my studio at 9 in the morning. I'm like, okay, like I need to come up with something.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so.
Has so you mentioned you played a lot of guitar. Have you when did you start songwriting? Has it always been a part of what you've done, or is it kind of later on you like, hey, maybe I should do this?
Um, I I probably started writing songs pretty early on to like I guess pretty early on in like my musical journey. I mean, the songs were terrible, but like I think I was like 11 years old writing songs about like snowboarding, and I didn't even snowboard. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia,
Right.
but I've wanted to snowboard, so
Yeah.
I wrote a song. Just over the years, luckily, hopefully got better.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, luckily
Um,
now at least your 11-year-old self, I'm sure, can find some snowboarding in Sweden.
yeah, exactly. I
So
haven't
so you
been
should be
snowboarding in Sweden, but
yeah.
maybe I should
That's
try to
give it a
scope that
try.
out.
So so you have a new EP coming out in August entitled If I Only Knew Part 2.
Mhm.
So obviously kind of a sequel, so to speak, on your one from last year, If I Only Knew Part 1. Um, just talk to us about the stories we could kind of expect to hear and maybe how they'll differ from Part 1.
So part two is a bit more Nashville leaning, and part one was a bit more Sweden leaning. So with this new EP, I feel like I started or wrote most of the songs in Nashville. And then we did then track like the initial recordings here in Sweden with my friends Owen Lewis and Jeremy Griffith, who are like two of my best friends and close collaborators. Yeah, and it's just so fun working with them. But yeah, we started. They came over here. It was like a long time ago now, like a year and a half ago. Yeah, we had a studio for 3 weeks, and we tracked a bunch of songs, and then I feel like for this EP, we got maybe 40-50% there, and then they went back to Nashville, and then we sort of just worked on the songs remotely. Then I was back in Nashville, and we finished up the songs there.
Yeah.
So it was like a long, drawn out process, and we some songs went to like mix 15. Um, Poor
Yeah.
Owen, but we're still friends. So
Right. So is your recording in Sweden versus maybe recording like in Nashville, is it just more of a comfort thing for you now that you kind of live there?
yeah, so I moved to Sweden. My wife is from here, and we have a little boy now, and we just decided to sort of make Sweden our home base. And I found this amazing studio called it's called in Swedish, it's Svenska Grammofonstudion, which is like Swedish gramophone studio. And
Okay.
they have this, I don't know how much you know about like recording, but like not to be too nerdy, but they have like this amazing vintage console in there. It's a Neve, old Neve board that used to belong to Queen used to have it, and then like Led Zeppelin records were mixed on it. And there's just like
Amazing.
something magical in that console. And the studio sounds amazing. Like I told the owner, I was like, if this studio is in Nashville, it'd be one of the best studios in Nashville. And I just sort of
Yeah.
stumbled on this little hidden gem. And now I work out at that studio too. That's kind of like where I go for my day job, and I have like my own little private space there. So I thought it would be fun. Uh, Early on in the move to have my friends come over, and we make a record here, and we play everything ourselves, because we're all like, well, like me and Jeremy, I feel like we can play a lot of instruments, like I'm good at like faking my way through a lot of instruments, so it like sounds like I know what I'm doing, but I have no
Right.
idea what I'm doing.
Right.
Um, but there's fun in that too. It's like you can never like do the same thing twice. You're like,
Right.
did you track that? Yeah, yeah, we got it. Okay, cool. Then I
Amazing.
have to figure out how to play it,
Yeah.
before a
Yeah, I
tour.
can yeah, I mean, I can imagine like especially the comfort level of just having friends and doing it at a place where, you kind of feel that magic. Obviously, Queen and Zeppelin on the same console, like I can I can definitely see how that would
It's just
be
inspiring.
a
Like
fun time.
we
Yeah.
found a photo of like Freddie Mercury just sitting back in a chair with his smoking a cigarette with his feet up on the board, and it's like the
Right.
same board I'm sitting in front of him. It's like, that is as cool as it gets. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, nothing like
um,
working on a piece of history essentially,
it's
right?
really a
Like
piece of
that's
history. Yeah.
yeah.
So I was like super grateful to get to work on that, and it was fun too, like just being in Sweden and Gothenburg has an amazing music scene that I discovered, but I guess if you people knows Sweden as like Stockholm and like the pop thing. So it was nice coming to a city that like wasn't necessarily like a music city, especially coming from Nashville. So there weren't as
Right.
many distractions for us, and like,
Gotcha.
I mean, I have some close friends here, but not like in Nashville where Owen and I have been there for 11 years, so we know, so we have so many friends, and
Mm.
like for them too, like they have their families, and it was nice, like we could just all be together for three
Yep.
weeks with no
Yeah.
distractions and just focus on the music.
Yeah, that's honestly amazing. Like, so you've been releasing music almost a decade now, I think, pretty close
Yeah,
to a
close
decade.
to it. Yeah.
Has your approach over like the years changed and how you like kind of go about making an EP or a record or anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when I started out, I didn't really do much recording of my own. I grew up working in studios, like being like the intern. I would like clean the bathrooms. Like I remodeled a bathroom in New York. I had no idea what I was doing. It had nothing to do with recording, but
Right,
every now and then you'd learn a thing or two. But
right,
I never felt like confident enough to record my own music. And I'd say like throughout the 10-year journey I've had with Old Sea Brigade, I've just I feel like I've got more comfortable, working in Pro Tools, which is what I use to record all of my
uh,
music, and understanding how microphones and gear and like compressors and all of that stuff works. And so I feel like that's where I can like really nerd out, and it can like distract me if I don't feel like writing. I could just EQ a kick drum for 15 minutes just to pass the time, and then come in the next day and hate it, but
right.
it's part of the process, I guess. But
Yeah,
but I've also viewed now too, like what I was saying earlier. I think before I would write a couple songs a year, and now I write so many songs, and I write a lot of songs with other people, and I've really come to love that. But that was a process too of like learning how to be a co-writer, especially for
right.
another artist, and let go of,
Yeah,
in like me personally, like I'd have to let go of certain attachments I had to songs. You could write a song one day, you're like, I think this song's amazing, and then the song never comes out. I have
yeah.
like a whole hard drive of just like, I call it like the song graveyard. They'll never come out.
It's funny. I talked to somebody yesterday who had never like they've never really co-written,
Mhm.
and I guess it never like occurred to me yesterday, but the process that must be to like let go a little bit of your own personal wants in a song when you're helping somebody, and yeah, just like what that process must look like.
Yeah, it's really tricky, and like every co-write's different. I now like I used to do like five writes, like Monday through Friday, five
Mm,
different people, and that's just exhausting. I can't do it anymore. So now, when I'm working with an artist, or if I'm working like just if I'm working on songs for Old Sea Brigade, like I work with my buddy Trent Dabbs, who's I think one of the most talented writers in the world. He's an amazing writer based in Nashville, and we've written a lot of stuff together. And
mm.
I mean, he's worked on tons of great- amazing records. But we're good friends, and it's just we're on the same wavelength when it comes to writing. Sometimes like you'll be in a room and you throw out a lyric idea, and then the other person's like, "Well, what does that mean?" I'm like, I don't know. I think it sounds cool. And they're like,
Right.
well, it doesn't make sense. I was like, okay. Or like other times it's good to be asked that question. What does that mean? And you have to kind of defend it
Right.
in
Yeah.
a way. And it's a balancing act, like you don't, because if you do too much of that, then you lose the magic. And I think sometimes, like for me, any write with more than three people is going to be a disaster. Like, you
Really.
need the edge,
Yeah.
you need the edginess there. If there's like,
Right.
I've done like the LA 5-person write, and it's just, you're like, what did I just do with the last 5 hours? It was a waste of time,
Right.
because, and I'm sure there's people that are, you know, that's not to knock people that do that because they're probably way better at it than I am. I just know personally for me, I like to be more one-on-one with the artist or the writer, um, and really build a relationship. Like I was working with someone about it was like 6 months ago, and we had just met. We had 3 days to write. The first day we wrote like the song was okay, but then the second day we wrote two songs, and those two songs ended up being on his record. It was like if we hadn't met that first day, we wouldn't have gotten those two songs the second day.
Right. Right.
Um, so you never know. You never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's definitely a world that like I don't think as a fan of music, I don't think I quite understood when I first started doing all this, but the more I get into it, like feels like a very complicated yet intricate world.
Yeah, you just
That
have to know how to. You just have to know how to navigate it. But I like going back to your original question too. I over the years too, I've realized how important it is to collaborate with people,
yeah.
and collaborate with people that are better at certain, at things than
Right.
than you are. It's how you grow as an artist, and um, that's how I feel like I've been able to make my
Hmm.
best work. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, I
I
think.
think like every artist, and I do this too, I like kind of romanticize the idea of like doing the Bon Iver thing and like going to the cabin by myself and write this masterpiece. But
Sure.
I'd probably just go there and like be super depressed and not get anything
Right.
done.
Right.
I'd rather
Yeah.
go to the cabin with my friends, and we can
Right.
hang out and
Yeah, I mean, I think just like anything, right? Like that even if it's not something you decide on doing, like having that experience, that little bit of life experience and writing with somebody or, working with somebody who's better at something than you is like it can never hurt, right?
yeah, it's the most
Um,
valuable thing, I think.
yeah. So being a musician is like a full-time job in its own right. But you're obviously a musician, a husband, a father. What's the balance of that look like? How you managing?
Yeah, I have to treat it like normal work, honestly. Like I get up, m- we get up early now, 6 a.m. That does we usually
Yep.
try to go to bed early too, but like, the one night, every now and then we go out for dinner with friends and get home, go to bed at 1. We're still up at
Mm.
6.
Right. Yep.
But I try to be at the studio around 9, and then I try to come home around like 5 or earlier if I can. And for me too, like when it comes to like producing other people, and even like for myself, like my ears get exhausted after like I feel like I have 6 really good hours in front of speakers where I'm like, okay, I think I know what to do here. I think I know what to do
Mm.
here. After that, like the staying at the studio till like 2 in the morning, it doesn't really work for me because that I end up making really bad decisions because I
Yep.
just creatively and like sonically because my ears get so fatigued.
Yep.
And that's a real thing. So
Yeah.
I've had to like recognize that now and know like, okay, of course, like if someone has some huge wave of inspiration, I'm happy to, ride that and see where it takes us. But, I also too, like, I want to come home and, you know, have dinner with my family and, tuck my son into bed.
Right.
I can edit vocals and stuff on my laptop in the kitchen,
Right.
if I need to. But
Yeah.
I think the way to make it sustainable for myself is to just keep a normal hours. And then touring is of course its own thing, which
100%.
is like that's like the Wild West. I don't think no one's been able to quite figure
Right.
out the healthy way to do that. Well, I
Yeah.
guess yeah. There's so many variables at play.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting the sonic thing and like your ears get tired. I've found that too. Even as a listener, like I'll be on like I'll be coming home from like the airport late and it's like midnight and I'll
Hmm.
like a song and I'll go back and listen to it the next morning. I'll be like, what was I listening to? It is funny how your ears can do that and they like change what it likes depending on how much you've been going through in a day.
Yeah,
So
but it
I
makes
relate to
sense. I
that so
mean,
hard.
it really makes sense. And now, like I'll if I'm stuck on a song, like if I'm writing something and I'm stuck on it, like I said earlier, I'll put it away for a while. Or also like if I'm producing something up and I'm not sure what it needs, I'll make a bounce of it and I'll listen to it like when I'm out like on a run or something,
Hmm.
and just outside of the studio. Um, and then I'll have a new idea. Just changing your environment. I mean, I'm going through it right now. I'm mixing a record for this band, and I've been working on the same song, like mixing the song for like 2.5 days. And I every time I leave the studio, I feel kind of like defeated. Like I haven't quite been able to nail what I like have the song translate the way I want it to translate
Yeah.
sonically.
Hmm.
But then I get home and I'm like cooking dinner, then I put on the song on like, just our little home stereo. And I'm like, oh, I think I know what it needs,
Right.
and
Yeah.
on like some, crappy little, speakers in the
Hmm.
kitchen.
Yeah. That is funny
While
because
meanwhile I have like my fancy studio with like, you know,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't, you never know. I
Yeah.
do think you have to change the environment, like when it comes to production, mixing, or songwriting too,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you can just it can get so insular
Mm.
in one
Yeah.
place. And yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Like I think for me too, like I'll even when I'm like I find like I like different music depending on where I'm listening, and that's kind of odd, but so as an artist, I guess, so you wear a thousand hats, apart from, the making music and doing all that. So obviously I kind of operate in social media. So I love to ask artists if they enjoy the social media piece of things, or is it like, well, got to wake up and do this because it's just like part of the job, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm sure every artist you talk to probably says what I'm about to say.
Probably, I can only guess. Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with
Yep.
social media.
100%. Yeah.
And I hope no one like loves it, because then I feel like there's better things in life to love
Sure.
than
100%.
this. But
Yep.
it's a necessary part of the business, and like you don't have, you know, for me, I'm so fortunate that for right now, like music is my job, and I don't have to love every aspect of my job.
Yep.
And
100%.
if the social media thing is, if that's like the thing that kind of grinds my gears the most, so be it. And
Mark things, right?
yeah, and it's obviously it's always changing, and like algorithms and this and that, and I just try not to focus on it.
Hmm.
I mean, I feel I'm lucky I have like a little team that helps me out with it now, so I can, if I was just on it all the time, it would just I just wouldn't do anything creative, like as far as like being an artist. And not that I'm like a huge artist by any means, but like I feel lucky that I have some years, like, and I've seen how social media's changed. So
Yep.
now when I talk to like, if a 20-year-old artist like asks me like, oh, how do I get started in the music industry now? I'm like, I don't know. Like you have to just
Right.
write songs that you love and put out a song every 6 weeks, I
Right.
think. Just put out a
Yeah.
song every 6 weeks and then do that for 10 years. And
Hmm.
and you will get somewhere if the
Yeah.
songs are good,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
think that's pretty fair to
And
say.
then social media, just don't obsess over it. That now like so many things are out of your control. So it's like if a post doesn't get many likes, it doesn't define you as an artist.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, you have to
I
just
get it.
kind of forget about it.
Even as someone who operates in social media for the most part, I have a love-hate relationship with it. You can't it just is what it is, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
So
How long have you been on it?
so I've this has like been my thing for 2.5 years ish.
Okay.
3 years almost that I've been like I think I made my first like music related TikTok like probably April of 21. So yeah, like 4 years maybe. I'd worked like a full-time job alongside of it for a long time, and then like only recently really tried to make it a gig. I
Yeah.
got to be able to support myself with it. So happy to finally have like the time and the space to give it the attention I feel like I can give it. Like couldn't do that working, 50 hours a week, but now
Yeah, of
can
course.
kind of focus on it a little more.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's been okay. I tried to not even like you said overthink it or do too much
Yeah.
with it, but um, still
I,
it's nice. Yeah,
I think there's like I I've noticed this too where anything that's your passion and then it becomes your job. It's kind of a balancing act, and like no one can tell you how to manage that. You have to sort of figure
yeah,
it out yourself, and that's
100%.
been a thing now. Like I don't know if this was earlier on or before we started recording, but I was like, I love being in my 30s now because I feel like I have all these years of just learning how to
Yeah.
like, be a better person and better musician, whatever, just trying to improve.
Hmm.
And with that, like obviously comes a lot more responsibilities too, which is, hopefully the natural progression of life. But when something, like music that I've loved from an early age, eventually became my job, it's like it's a it's a balancing act every day, you know.
Yeah, I
And
couldn't
also
agree
too,
more.
like for me, I had someone told me it's like, you know, you it's not a right to like make money from music, it's a huge privilege and try
Yeah.
to wake up every day and like or like what anything you love, I would
Hmm.
still do this if obviously like if it wasn't my job.
Yeah.
Because I obsess over it,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
it's a balancing act now
Yeah.
that I have
100%.
a
Like
family to support.
couldn't agree more. Like it's a balancing act, and again, like yeah, like I started this. I didn't anticipate this ever being like a gig, like it'd be able to support me by any means. It's just something I like doing. It like occupied my time and made me feel okay. That's all I could ask for in anything. But yeah, I mean, being in your 30s, it, yeah, it's a level of like, I don't want to say maturity because I don't think that's like the proper word for it, but just
Yeah.
kind of being okay in what you like and what, yourself. And, so yeah, so after, you have quite the catalog of music at this point. What's the song that you've put out that you're most proud of?
Probably Call Me When You Land that I wrote with Luke Singh and we put it out
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
We wrote that whole EP we just wrote in like 5 days at his apartment in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and we didn't know what we were gonna do with the music then. There was no plan. We just we'd been friends for a while, but we'd never gotten together to write. Sometimes that can go well, sometimes it can be a disaster, and
Yeah.
we lucked out. It was really fun, uh, and then yeah, the whole way like that song came together too. Then Luke came to Nashville and we recorded it at the studio I was working out of, and then Owen Lewis came on and co-produced it and mixed it, and yeah, just it was just such a fun process. Like we had fun, like
Yeah.
there was no like we didn't know what it was going to be for, so we were
Yeah.
literally it felt very pure, and I was like, oh, I just wish I try to like remember that feeling and hold on to that, and it doesn't always happen, because it's like anything, there's frustrations, but
Mhm.
with your work, of course, but like with that song, it was just like this sort of golden moment, like
Yeah.
lightning in a bottle sort of thing.
Amazing.
So try to recreate it, but don't
Hard
always
sometimes. Yeah.
strike it.
Hmm. So I live my social media life is in music curation. So I love asking artists, give me a song or an artist that you've kind of been listening to a lot lately.
I've been listening to a lot of His Golden Messenger. I'm
Hmm.
a huge
Yeah,
fan.
yeah,
Like it's really good springtime music,
yeah, yeah. I would
I
agree.
feel. Like it's like now in Sweden, the days are it's longer days, and the trees are blooming and all that. And I just feel like I don't know. For me, maybe I always listen to His Golden Messenger in the springtime. I should actually look at like the bands I listen to throughout
Right.
the seasons. I bet
Yeah.
there's some pattern there.
Totally.
But I've been also listening to um my friend Chris Staples is an amazing songwriter and musician. And I've known about Chris for a long time, and I love his records. It's just
Yeah.
really good music,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So I guess in kind of in wrapping up here a little bit, like tell everybody what we're kind of what's on the horizon for you. Obviously, you have the EP coming out, but anything else you're excited about coming up?
Yeah, I have the EP coming out. I'll probably do some alternative versions of songs in the near
Mm.
future too.
Yeah.
And then I have a tour planned that I can't announce yet, but
Uh-huh.
it'll be it'll be a big tour, so that'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome.
And then just hopefully just keep putting out music, you know?
Yeah. Heard. Hey man,
Yeah,
well, I appreciate you taking the time today, and
yeah,
can't wait to listen to the new EP. Can't wait to maybe see you on tour, and
yeah.
hope everything
Thank you.
goes well, man.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.